I'm Jeanne Donado,
Who do you work for?
Lansing Community College in Lansing, Michigan.
And your role with them currently?
I am the Grant Development Coordinator.
And how long have you been in this role or with the college?
Almost 10 years. Well, I think similarly to the same way a number of people did. I was working in nonprofits and, mostly for a long time, small community-based nonprofits, and they never had enough money. And so at one point I was working and we needed money to like refinish the parking lot or something. And somebody had the brilliant idea, well, maybe we can get grant money to do that. There was a local organization that would give money. So I said, I'll write that. And I wrote it. And I don't remember if it got funded or not, but it was this really, it was like 2 lines. What do you want the money for? And I was like, oh, that was pretty fun. Wonder if I could do that again. So, and then I eventually got into a job with an organization that made more than 90% of its income with grant funds. And so that's when I really started doing it seriously. Mhm. Well, it's funny. I've worked with a lot of different kinds of nonprofits, and I live right up the street from the college that I work at. And, when I had dogs, we used to go down there and walk around the campus late at night. And I'd say, this would be kind of a cool place to work. So I've worked in a lot of different kinds of nonprofits, and and I also taught for a long time at different colleges, taught writing. And I always thought, this would be a pretty cool place to work. It's nearby. I like the community college scene. So the job opened up just at a time when I didn't have another job for various reasons. And I applied and, thought, well, this would be fun. And they interviewed me and decided that they liked me. But, I'd been teaching for a long time and thought, yeah, community college would be a very cool place to work. Oh, absolutely. I always laugh that I learned to write when I was teaching writing. It just brought me to a next level. I'd always been a fairly good writer, but it was like I really started to get it. I would also teach like workplace communications and business writing, and it brought me to a whole different scope. I'd been doing it for a while, but my academic background was in literature and that kind of writing. Like, oh, well, I can do it differently. In my current job, there are a lot of people at the college who don't know that there's a grants office. That is starting to change as we're getting more embedded, which is one of the things I've been working on a lot for the last 10 years. You'd think after 10 years, you'd know that I was there, but I still go into rooms, especially where it's faculty, and they have no idea that there's a grants office. And so that surprises people. Well, it gets back in some ways to teaching writing for a long time, is that I have a lot of opportunities to work with people who, either don't write much or it's bringing it to a whole different focus. And so there are lots of times when I feel like, I'm teaching writing again. I'm not grading them. They get graded when we find out if we got the grant or not. Um, but I like that. I still like that sense of bringing people to the next level and how they understand something, how they do something, how much they're willing to do something, trying to make it fun while acknowledging it that it's a heck of a lot of work. I mostly work with the college leadership, deans, associate deans. I work with the college provost. My boss is the associate vice president of, there are a lot of words after that.
Right.
But one of the things that she oversees is the grant work and also the LCC Foundation. which I don't work with them directly, but we do intersect on grant work periodically. You know, in the smaller nonprofits that I worked with, a lot of people are very enthusiastic about the organization. A lot of them are volunteers and they're like, yeah, let's do this. So there's that. As I just said, it's harder sometimes to get people involved at the time. On the other hand, there's a lot of support for the work I do. And the fact that they have a grants person shows that there's a lot of support. So that's something that I haven't experienced in my work until fairly recently. LCC is not the only place that's done that, but sort of getting to that level where you're not teaching in community-based organizations anymore. So there's more time, there's more money, there's more attention, there's more leadership to keep that visible. Well, I have to say that at this point in my career, almost everything I get in that realm is through GPA and all of the learning opportunities that you offer, and also the fabulous people that I get to work with. There are people who really know a lot about this stuff, more than I do, certain parts of it. But also I go to other workshops that different nonprofits, national organizations are offering. Recently, I've gone to a couple on diversity, equity, and inclusion kinds of topics. Went to a really interesting one a month or so ago that was offered by a community foundation. So they have a much larger view of, you know, what's happening in the community, what they're seeing, their role in keeping DE&I moving forward. That was a great workshop. So I keep an eye open for those sorts of things. Go to a lot of government ones. I mostly work with federal government grants. And so when a department in the federal government is offering some kind of workshop or a learning opportunity, I try to get to those. Well, I think the experience, you know, I mentioned before working in a nonprofit where more than 90% of their income came through grants. And so that was, you know, you had to know what you were doing. And it was exciting. I loved the work that I was doing. I was working in an economic development nonprofit working with specialty food businesses in southeastern Ohio, Appalachian foothills. That was a really interesting job, and it was so cool in so many ways. It was like, yeah, I want to get money for this place. And there were a few people in the organization already who were very proficient at it. So that was really where I got the bug about wanting to do it. And then that was in southeastern Ohio, and then I moved to the Lansing area where I am now. And the first place I worked, my job was in large part to work on the grants and other things. So I just, you know, started to take on jobs where one of my main responsibilities was grants. And now at LCC, it's my only responsibility. I think burnout is something to really take seriously. Part of the job, you know, it's a high burnout job that when there's a deadline or something isn't going right, you sweat with that all night while you're working on it. So I think one thing is to take good care of yourself. And we've talked about that a lot recently at some of the GPA workshops and conversations. It really is central. If you're not taking good care of yourself, you're not going to do very well. I think continuing to learn, however that works best for you. And one of the things I find is learn from your mistakes. You're going to make plenty of them. And you can beat yourself up and feel bad about it, or you can learn from it and say, all right, what can I do differently next time? I think as you get further in the career, though, one of the questions that I've had to ask myself is this really what I want to be doing? Because it's easy to, I think sometimes it's easy to step outside of what you really want to be doing. But I think that's a healthy thing to ask yourself too, if you're feeling burned out, if you're feeling like you can't do it anymore. well, do you just need a break? Or is it really not the right career for you? And I think every time you make a decision that, yes, this is what I want to be doing, it helps propel you to that next step.